All I can see here is a bunch of thumbnails, but I'm going to do my best to treat you all like you're here in my office with me. Um, Bonjour, Anin, Cale Crowe, Indigenous, Alderville First Nation, and Donjaba. Um, my name is Cale Crowe. I come from a place called Alderville First Nation, which, for any of you local boys and girls, is 20 minutes up the road from Coburg on Highway 45. I'm 28 years old. I attended what used to be CDCI East before it became just CCI. And I've been performing music professionally, quote unquote, since 2013. Um, I attended a few schools before I decided that this was what I wanted to do. I actually dropped out of university, like, the classic starving artist story. Um, in 2013, I dropped out of Trent University to do this full time. And I performed about 8 shows that year and thought that it was just this was the peak of my performance rate, I guess. And so I did music for a year, um, quote unquote full time, wrote, recorded, all that good stuff before going back to school in 2014 at Durham College for the music business management program there. It's a 3 year advanced diploma, um, during which time I was an intern at Warner Music Canada. For those of you that don't know, Warner is the major record label that represents acts like Ed Sheeran and Bruno Mars internationally, as well as local acts like Blue Rodeo and Billy Talent. Um, I've also, just to kind of give you an idea of the sort of successes that I've had over the past couple of years, I had my own radio show here in Northumberland County called Northumberland 150, which, if you remember, we did the Canada 150 celebrations a few years back, and so I created a radio series talking about the 150 years of history in our own backyard, basically. So those were running. I think they still actually run from time to time, like commercials, on Northumberland 89.7. And I'm sure you could probably request them if you really wanted to, because they're available in the archives. I've performed at the Gathering of Nations powwow, which, for those of you that don't know, Gathering of Nations is the world's largest powwow, taking place in Albuquerque, New Mexico every year. Hundreds of different nations come from all over the continent to participate in that. So that was incredibly exciting. It's a 3-day drive, but you know, and for so then after that, I had the chance not last year, I believe it was the year before, to open for Ron Sexsmith here in Coburg. I've also opened for Scott Hellman, Crownlands, Coburg's own Cleopatra. Um, and ultimately, which this was my main goal back in like 2013, is what I call professional status, which basically means that I have paid every bill and accommodated every expense in my life just using music for the past 5 to 7 years, which ultimately, when I started playing music, I wasn't really I wasn't trying to play huge stadiums or arenas or anything like that, though that would be nice. Um, but ultimately, my goal from day one was to be able to live comfortably, using only what I do with a guitar, um, to pay for that. Um, so I just wanted to quickly talk about, um, let's see, I've got notes here uh, for these sorts of things. Okay, so um, Dean sort of wanted me to talk about um, some of the challenges that I faced during my time, and I think one of the main stereotypes that I've experienced in the entirety of my life is that I'm probably based on the list of uh, appearances that I've read for this sort of thing, I'm probably the fairest skinned guest that you've probably had for Indigenous Peoples Awareness Month. Um, and that was a huge thing for me growing up, was not necessarily fitting what people had in their heads as to what an Indigenous person is supposed to look like. I'm here. I'm very fair skinned. I believe Ryan McMahon once called it hot dog pink. So I think that was a huge thing for me, was just not fitting what people had in their mind, um, as to what we should look like. This is also true for a lot of people on my res. So I imagine a lot of people um, in the chat are aware of what Alderville is, where it is. We are definitely not positioned in the same space as other reservations. In 2017, I got the chance to fly up to a remote fly-in only reservation called Pikangikum, which is north of Thunder Bay, and that was even there. I got the um, like, you don't look like us sort of treatment, because I have the same skin as all of the fly-in teachers that they had for the semester at their school. And um, but like I said, we're definitely positioned in a different space than those, because, well, for one, you can access our reservation by road, which is not the case for quite a few reservations in the province. We're also, on average, a fair bit wealthier than a lot of reservations. We have access to clean drinking water and things like that. So um, that was always something that I tried to bear in mind uh, when I was engaging in these spaces. Um, there's also um, there's something else that I just call it artistic expectation. So in 2017, I put out a CD called Till You Let Me Go. It's available everywhere right now: Spotify, iTunes, all that good stuff. And I was eligible to get uh, this record considered for the Junos. So, for anyone who doesn't know what the Junos are basically Canadian Grammys. They're held every year in February, and artists like Drake and The Weeknd have won Junos countless times. But I was, eligible to be considered for this, and so I submitted it to the Indigenous music category, which doesn't even exist anymore, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But I submitted this to that category, and I received an email about a week and a half later from a woman representing the Junos, asking me if I could outline lyrically or musically the things in this record that made it quote unquote Indigenous. Apologize for hitting my mic. And so I wrote her back and I said, to be clear, you're asking me to identify what sort of fits your preconceived notions of what Indigenous people's music should sound like. Um, and basically the person on the other end, their response was yes. Unfortunately, my music is uh, acoustic and contemporary, and this record does not implement any sort of drumming or traditional singing of any kind. Um, and so it doesn't fit what Canada considers to be Indigenous music. This ruling changed, I believe, last year, um, or perhaps end of the year before, so that now it's an Indigenous Artist Award rather than an Indigenous Music Award. So it's more focused on the who of the matter, and not the what it sounds like, because otherwise you end up in this weird sort of racially charged uh, quagmire of what this other music is supposed to sound like. um and so that was another huge challenge for me, um was just sort of finding my space and the peace, like making peace with the fact that not that my music isn't going to necessarily sound like what people are expecting it to sound like, just by virtue of me being an Indigenous person. And that was something that I definitely had a lot of trouble with, um, even starting out with the record before, um, which if you go on Spotify, that that record's a little bit more soft rock, I would say. But anyway, another big thing that I wanted to talk about, um, in regards to challenges that I've faced, is there's a huge social responsibility in what I do. Um, I'm playing pubs and bars and nightclubs and theaters and this sort of thing. Outside of COVID-19, I'm playing, you know, on average about 100 to 125 shows every year to uh, a predominantly white audience. I'm playing in towns like Coburg and Peterborough and Port Hope and Oshawa and Toronto and Montreal and this sort of thing. And it's important that I find it really important that people understand the sort of the struggles that the royal sense of my people are going through, whether it's the Idle No More movement, whether it's what's happening over in the Wet'suwet'en territory out west, the Mi'kmaq out east with the fishery crises that's going on out there. A lot of people are only getting one side of that story. And I find the way that um, I'm able to use my platform to converse with people on a level that isn't just preachy. Um, I find a lot of um, musicians get on, things like Twitter, and they just sit there and they just spew their opinion, and they're only being echoed back by the people that share the same opinion. And so when I go into a bar, um, I'm able to, uh, I'm able to connect one on one with people in a way that I don't think other acts in my position, um, or acts above my station have that opportunity, just because um, they might not be necessarily aware of that position. I know you guys had other Indigenous artists in here, some of whom I know for a fact are huge advocates for, um, social justice and racial equality and things like that. So I'm really happy that you guys are able to um, have people come in and talk on these super important issues. Another big one that is sort of more general: COVID-19. I haven't actually. I think I'm only going to be able to play. I think it's something like somewhere in the 20 to 35 performances in this whole year. And prior to this, I averaged about 100 to 125, like I said before. COVID-19 really, really sucked for for everybody this year, and the fact that we're doing this in a virtual setting, as great as it is that we're able to do that, that it wouldn't be happening if not for COVID-19. Um, but I definitely see, or I definitely try not to take the performances that I've been able to have for granted, just because I know that there are so many musicians right now in my position that are unable to do what I do, whether it's performing in bars in green zones or being able to come in here and talk to you guys. I think it's wonderful that I'm able to do this for you guys, and like I hope I I hope I express how grateful I am for being able to do this. Um, Generally speaking, the role that music has played in my life, music is basically the only thing that I know that makes sense. Um, Without music, I would probably be doing who knows what. I don't even spend any time thinking about it. Um, but when I dropped out of university that first time in 2013, I remember I was incredibly depressed. Uh, I wasn't eating properly. I was doing all sorts of bad things. And I remember I just went to turn on a computer in the library one day and saw my reflection in the screen before it turned on, and fired up an email and said uh, to my academic advisor at the time, I said, I'm out, So, um, but prior to that, I was already starting to play at hockey games and things like that. So music has been with me as far back as I can remember. Even going back to our annual powwow up in Alderville. Just being around the drum and the singers and the dancers, and um, I see music as this great connector, this great bridge. Um, our symbol, which I'm sure all of you have already seen, is a medicine wheel, and there is a reason that that symbol is a circle. And the reason, for me at least, is when when you come together in a circle, everyone can see each other. Everyone is on the same equal playing field, and that's the way that ultimately things should be. Uh, is that everyone who comes into the circle and everyone who is here um, is no one in this group of people gathered here today is better than anyone else. Um, and I see our culture as exemplary of that, and I see music as exemplary of that. I've never seen myself as someone who uh someone who comes in and stands, 20 feet away from everyone on a big stage, and everyone just sits and shuts up and consumes the art. I've always seen myself as someone who I've always seen the thing that I do as a way to bring people together, a way to share in our joys and our fears and our grief and our aspirations. And ultimately, that is where I think I would like to have the rest of my career go, is just bringing people together. And when I get messages about people connecting with certain songs, um, and songs that have to do with, so for example, I wrote a song back in 2014 called Little Star, and it's about the grief process in our culture. When someone passes into the next world, we, in at least in Alderville, what we do is we conduct what's called a sacred fire, and we start this fire, and we gather the medicines, and we hold this fire for 4 days and 4 nights. um and what we're doing is we're helping the spirit that is passed on from this world make their way into the next. And in 2013, a spirit close to me entered the spirit world, and I wrote this song about tending to their fire. Um, and I get messages still to this day. That record came out 5 years ago, and I still get messages saying that people have found me through this song. And you know, having people tell you that it's connected with them, that's really like the whole point for me of doing this, is just making things that help people identify within themselves, um, certain feelings and certain thoughts and beliefs, is ultimately where I want the rest of my career to go. Um, so yeah, I see it as a conversation. I see it as an exchange. I see it as um, this great gatherer um, for pretty much all of us. Um, Historically, it's only been in the past 100 years that we've uh started to have music be this sort of spectacle, where you have your audience and then you have your musician or your band standing away from them projecting their art onto the audience, whereas time was musicians would be dead center in that crowd, um performing, and even at our powwows, our drummers and our singers are dead center in that circle, um, for everyone to see and everyone to participate. So that's really where I want to see music go, and it's never been a better opportunity, unfortunately, because of COVID-19. We've never had a greater opportunity to bring the musician back into that grouping, than now when everything is uh, been leveled in terms of playing fields. So, um, anyway, that was pretty much what I had prepared. So, I want to take a quick moment to thank Dean and thank everyone for sticking this out with me so far. Um, and yeah, I think if there are any questions, we're going to take them now. I've got the chat open here on my end.
While the teachers and individual people are considering a question to ask Cale, without putting you on the spot, would this be an opportune time for you to share with us some of what you were speaking to as far as your original music?
Yeah, I can play a song if you want. Um, Really quick, I see Ben Newell asked how long did it take for me to make my first song. So I wrote my first song uh in 2010, um about about a girl, shocker. And that song took probably about 2 collective hours over the course of like a week to write, and I still perform that song to this day. That song is called "The Promise." You can find it on Spotify. Um, and Yeah, I'm just gonna quickly grab my guitar before answering the next question. Okay. Can you talk to us about your creative process? Yeah, sure. So, um, everybody still hear me? Um, so my creative process, I live right downtown, um, in Coburg right now. And so a huge part of my process, especially this year, has been going on long waterfront walks, um, with, just whatever kind of music I'm into of the day in my ears, just sort of thinking about moments in my life. And, a lot of the stuff that I write is in retrospect. Um, with the exception of a few songs, including the one I'm about to play. So what I usually do is I think back on moments in my life, and I sort of try and frame them in sort of how I feel now, um, and sort of thinking of that relative to how I felt at the time, because ultimately what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to tell a story, um, in a way that hopefully other people can relate to. Um, So yeah, I hope that answers the question. Can you expand on the reason for the 4 days and 4 nights? So, um, the 4 days and 4 nights thing, um, that some people don't totally subscribe to that. Like sometimes, um, in a more modern context, it depends on things like funeral scheduling. Oh, I got test of the emergency system. That's great. Um, and so everything in our culture, um, boils down to four. So there's, there's four directions, there's four seasons, there's four stages of the human experience. There's four medicines. Um, and so when you look at a medicine wheel, um, usually, you have your north, south, east, west. You have um, your white, black, red, and yellow, which are also, generally speaking, the peoples of the earth. And um, more importantly, the four aspects of the human experience are, infancy, youth, adulthood, and the elder stage. But it's also a matter of, um, at least in my experience, it's also a matter of, um, when we enter the world, we always say that we enter through the east, much like the sun, how it rises in the east and sets in the west. And so when we talk about people leaving us in this realm, we talk about them passing through the western doorway. Um, and so, the 4 days and 4 nights thing is sort of just to help. Uh, it's just sort of good to you know uh, for that spirit to, um, meet with those who they're leaving behind, and for those who are being left behind to meet with each other. And um, yeah, I hope I'm explaining that properly. But yeah, um, that album of yours available on CD and or cassette. I really wish that I had uh cassette. That would be so dope. I'm actually surprised that people are still buying cassettes. This CD here, this is the most recent one. I put it out like 3 years ago. This is available. You can either DM me personally on my social media, or you can find it at Zap Records in Coburg. Um, and Either way, you're able to find it there. For anyone who doesn't use physical anymore, it's available on pretty much any streaming platform. Um, Lucas would like to know when your music career started. So I'm kind of all over the place on this answer, to be honest. Uh so I first started playing guitar when I was 12, in the summer of 2005, I think. I started playing in front of an audience when I was 14, when Duncan Conyers talked me into getting up in performing Oasis's Wonderwall at my high school talent show. And I started playing live shows in 2013, after dropping out of university. I did go back to school, but for something in the music realm. So, how long have you been a singer? I've been a singer since the time I was able to sit in a passenger seat of a car, pretty much. Um, I I don't really know, other than when I first started playing guitar and singing along to it. Um, that's basically, like, I've been a singer for pretty much as long as I can remember. Um, I'd like to know. I unfortunately do not have my spirit name yet. It is in the works. There is a process to it, that I am still learning, but yeah, I'm hoping to get that ball rolling in the new year. But unfortunately, not yet. Let me just make sure I haven't missed any questions. Um, Hardest song to make. Made it so hard to write. Um, I think the answer to that is different for different reasons. I The song that I'm gonna play you guys, um, is my song called Little Star, and that one was really hard because the person that it is about, um, was my niece. And unfortunately, my niece was, they called it born sleeping, where basically labor is induced, on account of the fact that the survivability of the newborn is very slim. And the reason for that in my case was there was a she was in the womb, and she was developing a very rare condition that caused cysts on the kidneys, and about something like less than 5% of all babies born worldwide get it, and most of them will most of them, the cysts will either fall off or get absorbed by the time the baby is born. But unfortunately that wasn't the case here, and so the again, we call it born sleeping. And so um and this was something that had never happened in our community before. We had done sacred fires for perform or for for perform for people who, for elders that had passed away, um for one of my cousins who died in an unfortunate accident many years before. But and so I wrote this song, and I'll play it now. um I wrote this song about tending to the sacred fire, and being present with a spirit that had no idea what it was like to be alive in our world. And yeah, I guess I'll just play it now. Hopefully this doesn't sound like garbage on everyone else's end. The clouds, they part like eyelids from your dreams. You have come from there and back again, it seems. The wind, it shakes the trees right to the trunk. Your time was over before it had the chance to start. And through the fire, I will watch you go. And in my dreams, I will watch you grow. My little star, take this world in your flame. Near and far, you'll shine free of this pain. And so bright, I will wonder what you are. By your light, I will follow you into the dark, my little star. And for a moment, I swear with you I shared this firelight and answered all your questions of this life. And my tears burned through the frost as you took flight. And the morning sun kissed my face and told me not to cry. Oh, sister, I know you tried. Oh, sister, I know you'll always ask why. My little star, take this world in your flame. Near and far, you'll shine free of this pain. And so bright, I will wonder what you are by your light. I will follow you into the dark, my little star. So wrap your fingers around my thumb and hold my body up to the sun. Little star, burn this life away from me. Oh, little star, no, don't you leave me, my little star. Take this world in your flame, near and far, you'll shine free of this pain. And so bright, I will wonder what you are by your light. I will follow you into the dark, my little star. So yeah, that's the song. And I get messages to this day from everyone from you know, big burly biker dudes to little old ladies messaging me on my Facebook saying that they really appreciate that song, and that's like I said, that's really what it's all about for me as a musician. So
That was absolutely beautiful, Cale. Chimigwech for sharing with us.
thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'm just gonna scroll through the chat just to make sure I've got everybody. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. Really appreciate it. Yeah. So yeah, that song, that's like 7 years old now. I do have, this is actually a really, great opportunity for a shameless plug. But I'm actually coming out with a new song, this week. There is a new song, that's going to be out digitally only, unfortunately, for everyone who's, doing physical. Your time will come next year when my next EP is out. But for now, I'm coming out with a new song. Um, it's going to be out midnight tomorrow night across most streaming platforms, um, but most importantly, Spotify and Apple Music and iTunes. So if you are a fan of what you just heard, this next, or the song that I'm putting out this week is a little different from that, but yeah. And I'm gonna be, if you're on social media, I'm gonna be streaming a performance on Friday night on Facebook at 7 and on Instagram at 9. And that's gonna be in celebration of releasing this new song, because I haven't put out a new song in, I think, a year. So um yeah, I put a song out in October of last year. So this will be the new song, the newest piece of music that I've put out, and the youngest piece of music that I put out, because I only wrote this song this year, whereas everything else is, at least a year or two old before I release it. So I'm just gonna make sure really quick. See, use for physical copy, good song. I do have a YouTube channel. Thank you, Jonathan, for asking. I have a YouTube channel. If you follow it, um, please do follow it, because that will keep me accountable, because I'm not the best, admittedly, at posting new content on YouTube, but I really want to be. So if you follow me on YouTube, hit my my DMs every now and then to, you know, keep the fire under me and make sure that I'm putting out new stuff. Jolene Moriarty, yes, all of my songs, other than the one I'm about to put out, are on Spotify right now. So including the one that I just, I just did. I'm gonna type out my username on YouTube. Um, So there, I just put it up in the chat for anyone who is interested in that. Um, and the spelling of my name there is how you can find me pretty much on any social media, any sort of platform. Sophie, that song that I just played is called Little Star, and it's off of my first EP called Stars and Promises. Um, so yeah, and yeah, if anyone has any more questions, I'm more than happy to take some. They don't necessarily have to be about um anything in particular. You can ask me what I had for breakfast this morning if you want. You can ask uh oh, thank you, Scout Flint, for subscribing. Oh, I'm my phone's open and I'm getting all of the notifications from my Gmail that you're all subscribing. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'm gonna try and have some new stuff out for you in the coming months. So um yeah. Raven Lewis, thank you for following on Spotify. I really appreciate that. Um and yeah, like I said, if you're on the socials, be sure to tune in. Um Notably, the Instagram live stream will probably be entirely originals, whereas the Facebook one I usually tend to throw a cover in or two. And yeah, uh, I'm sorry if I'm totally butchering your name, but I think it's pronounced Aria. Asked if I have vocal training, and I technically have a little teeny bit of vocal training. I I used to be a semi-active member of the community theater scene here in Northumberland County, and I received some vocal training from a teacher by the name of Susan Tanner, and that was mostly for um, scenes scenes in a play that involved a barbershop quartet, which um, God, I hope there's no footage of that out anywhere. But yeah, I was in a scene in a musical production where I was in a barbershop quartet, and I had to learn specific parts of a piece of music. So um, yeah, I learned how to at least I learned how to breathe properly uh in that training because I was definitely not using, you know, the full capacity of my lungs prior to that. Um Morgan, thank you for downloading all of my songs. Wow, that's really nice. Thank you so much. Evangeline, thank you for following on Instagram. Raven, thank you for following on Spotify. Yeah, you guys are really great. This has been really fun. Um, I'm just scrolling one more time so that I don't have any. Uh, Jolene asks how many songs I've written in my career. So let's see. I have about probably about 30 songs completed at least lyrically. Um, I find every song has, you know, different stages of production. Obviously, um, I you've got the musical element, you've got the lyrical, um, and unfortunately, a lot of the time, it's not really speaking back to my process. It's not one before the other. Sometimes the lyrics will come first, and sometimes the melody will come first. Um, Recently, because I've been stuck at home a lot during the COVID-19 situation, um, it's been even more chaotic. Like um, sometimes the lyrics will come to me at like 3 in the morning. Sometimes the music will come to me at 3 in the morning, and I can't play it and wake up everybody around me. Um, but uh, but yeah, that's that. Like I don't have a it's not really a machine that just, you know, I take in inspiration and I spit out content. Um, but you know, I'm working on it. What inspired me to play music? I was I'm a product of a, you know, at least musically not necessarily I wouldn't say musically gifted. I mean, I always thought that my mom had a really great singing voice, and I get my taste in music mostly from my dad. I have very, very clear memories of driving down like old, back country roads, excuse me, in Northumberland County with my sister and I tumbling around in the back of a Ford Bronco with the seats taken out, and my dad like drifting corners and that, all while listening to um, cassettes from Rolling Stones, Motley Crue, Aerosmith, um, Kid Rock at one point, and so I've always had a little bit of that. Like music has always been something that's sort of uh, been the backdrop to my experience growing up. So um, to me, music has always accompanied like basically everything. From uh, from birth, just different experiences that everybody has in life. Like there's songs that remind me of weddings, funerals, birthdays, you know, old loves come and gone. And um, so that's have I created music? Yes, actually. If I have created music with other people, if you go to Spotify, actually, I have a song with a rapper named Troy Junker, who I went to Durham College with. The song's called Dreamin', and um, we're actually going to be in the studio in the new year to make another song together. And yeah, that'll be on Spotify as well. uh, Nico, my favorite fruit is probably, I guess, a pomegranate is a fruit, right? Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna say pomegranate, even though it's the most messy, disgusting thing to eat in the whole world. Love pomegranates. Um, Carter would like to know if you've had any famous people in your audience. Yeah, so I've had famous people in my audience. I've played for I've played for famous people. I've opened for some pretty big names. Mostly when I think of famous people, I think of people well known in my industry, and so I've played for people that work in record labels. I've worked for people who work in radio and things like that. But in in terms of actual celebrity, there's an internet personality in the Indigenous realm by the name of Auntie Beatrice, and I actually performed in her presence at the Gathering of Nations. Tanya Jo Hall is the actress that plays Auntie Beatrice, and she was the MC that year, and it was really like a really great experience to meet with her. Um, Words of advice to share with younger budding musicians. Yeah. Play. Um, play to people who are going to give you genuine, honest feedback. I play so often to people who are going to tell me that it's good no matter what it is, which is great for the ego boost, but not great for the development. And so I would say find a circle of whether it's just friends or other musicians or whatever, um, play to them and get genuine feedback and act upon it. Because I spent so much of my life, um, I spent so much of my life playing to people who never told me that my music wasn't good. Um, and not that I think my music isn't good, but um, it was important. It's important as a musician to get it's important as any artist really to get feedback um that isn't just you know and especially in current social media era where people are either going to tell you that they love it or they think it's crap. um find people that genuinely are going to tell you things like, oh, I really like how you did this part, or I really think that this needs to be different, or that sort of thing. Another piece of advice I can give is just um create. If you're a musician that wants to play your own original music, create it. I think it was Ed Sheeran once said that the creative process in songwriting is kind of like um turning on an old rusty tap. And when you turn that tap on, the first few spurts of water are going to be filled with grime and dirt and disgustingness, but eventually that water will run clear. And so uh what I mean by that is just get it out, even if it's a little bit of words a day, or even if it's just like one little chord progression or lick or whatever. um and just continue that process, because you will only get better with every time that you pick it up and you do it. Who are some of my favorite bands? So I actually have a sleeve of tattoos started, um, work in progress. But right now, my favorite band growing up was a band from New York called Coheed and Cambria. But more recently, um, and as well, I don't know if you can see that, but Billy Talent's one of my favorite domestic acts. But I'm also a big fan of Protest the Hero, A Tribe Called Red, Dermot Kennedy, um, a band from Quebec called Chinzy and the Eclipse. And yeah, I'm always constantly looking for new things, and I'm really bad for just playing stuff on repeat. Um like I think last year the top 3 song, or the top like 10 songs I listened to were all from the most recent Post Malone album, because I just played it on repeat wherever I went. Um so what is my most viewed slash listened song? I think you're probably referring to Spotify. At least that's the one metric that I can tell you right now. And the song that I believe it is a song called Closer, that I put out back in 2017 off of this record. Again, shameless plug. If you want it, come and get it. Um, and yeah, that song uh, just passed over 1,000 streams. I'm not really um, my numbers are still growing on the streaming and things like that, so hopefully some of you guys that have subscribed and followed and downloaded and saved all of my songs can help with that. But because a lot of my audience tends to prefer the physical. But um yeah, I believe the answer to that is Closer. Let's see, what else can I impart upon you with the time that I have left. Oh, don't be afraid to be different. Um, and what I mean by that is, if you play the same stuff that everyone else plays, you're gonna get lumped in to the same groups. I used to play in a quote unquote hardcore band that never actually played any shows, but we jammed a lot in my basement. Um, and those were really fun times, but the people involved could never commit. And so um that's one of the main reasons why I play by myself in with the acoustic guitar. Which, on that note, Aria Root says, do you play any other instruments than guitar? So this thing behind me is an electronic drum pad. I am very new to the drums, but I use this when I perform, because I use a thing called a loop station, which, if anyone has seen the most, probably the most popular instance of the use of a loop pedal is Ed Sheeran. But um, basically, you play into it and it plays what you've played back, like having a backing track, but everything is made up on the spot. And so the the drum pad behind me, I play um, usually to start a song, and then I'll add, I'll use the guitar after that to to build bass lines and rhythm sections. And then after that, solo over top of it. And if you tune in on Friday, you'll be able to see all of that in action. So yeah, I think let me make sure that I've got everyone's questions in. Yeah, I think I think I've got everyone covered. If there's any I could probably answer one really quick one if anyone has one, but otherwise um Chimigwech for having me, and yeah, I hope to see you guys all down the road when all of this COVID business is over. What's the meaning of life to you? Create and share. That's the meaning of life to me, and keep the happy going. My favorite food, probably uh I don't know. I feel like the answer is probably garlic bread. But yeah, I'll have to think on that one. But anyway,
I'm just going to jump in, Cale, and say Chimigwech on behalf of all of us that were here today, and for the future viewers as well. That was a stirring performance.
thank you so much.
You hit on so many relevant topics as well for our audience. So we're very lucky to hear you, but we're also going to continue to be lucky following you. So I'm glad this was an opportunity to bring in some new listeners and some new followers for you.
I hope
That's
everyone enjoyed it. And yeah, like I said, my inboxes are open on most social media. So if anyone has any further questions, by all means, feel free to send them my way, and I usually answer within like 20 minutes or so, because I'm like everybody else, I'm glued to my phone. So but yeah.
So on behalf of everyone, Cale, I'd like to say Chimigwech, and also just as you know, the moderator here, I again want to acknowledge everyone's respectful questions and their attention during this. So that's, you know, you're offering us a gift with your music and your words, and as the receivers of that gift, we need to treat it respectfully. And I hope that came through to you on your end as well.
Yeah, it certainly did. I wasn't sure what to expect with the open chat. And to be fair, I did kind of invite the off-topic questions, but I happily accept them. So, yeah, feel free. Like I said before, inboxes are open. Feel free to hit me with any questions. They don't have to be music related. They don't even have to be culture related. But yeah, I try and make myself as accessible as I can. So, but again, thank you to everybody who is here. Thank you for everyone for tuning in, being so respectful, and yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say.
So take care of yourselves, everyone, and to you, Cale, Bama P.
Yeah, Bama P.